Zack Tanner. A lot of you, this is probably the first time seeing me. This is the first time I've ever presented here. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter and ask me some questions, Twitter handle's @Zack Tanner. Go ahead and give me a follow if you want. My session today is going to be about social media for nonprofits. Now, I've intentionally left this presentation a little bit short. I probably scheduled it for about a half hour. I want to open it up for discussion. I want to hear what you guys have done. I want to get feedback from everybody, and we can talk a little bit about what everybody's done. Before we can talk about strategy, I do want to tell you a little bit about myself so that I'm not just some guy standing up here talking about nothing. I'm a web developer, and I do social media at WQED Multimedia. So if you guys follow WQED on Twitter, Facebook, every once in a while, some of those posts come from me. And I'm part of the kind of task force there that determines what gets posted and how it gets posted and how we handle things. The other thing that we started doing this year, and I'm really pumped about this, we do a show on Wednesday nights called Conversation at WQED. We bring in guests, and it's a talk show. If anybody's seen Charlie Rose, it's kind of like that. But my job on the show is to solicit tweets and Facebook posts to get questions and comments for our guests. And it's a really cool, unique way to interact with the community and get their input on these guests that we bring in, because that's why we're there. And that's why a lot of nonprofits exist, to help people in the community and inform people in the community. So that's what we're doing. Like I said before, I broke this up into two different sections. There's the presentation, there's the discussion. So I guess let's try to keep most of the questions until the discussion at the end. But if anybody has a question based on something very topical that we're talking about, feel free to ask. My presentation's 3 different sections. We're going to go over strategy on social media, resources and what I think you should put into it, and then, as any nonprofit knows, part of everything is donations and collecting money. And on social media, there's kind of a very unique way you have to go about it, I think, because, as you know, people on social media don't like being sold to. Let's talk about strategy first. The first strategy piece I have is something that you've heard for any social media thing, not just nonprofits. That's engaging your audience. And it's really no different than anywhere else when you engage your audience for social media with nonprofits. But the only difference is you have to use it to the advantage, because usually you have limited resources in nonprofits. And the audience is unique too, because the audience that follows you probably really believes in what you're doing, or they want to believe in what you're doing. So you really have to take what you know and sell it to them. And it's interesting to find different ways to engage the audience for this. We have found that it works really, really well to give them unique content that they might not find on air or on a radio. Now, not everybody has the luxury of being able to do on air and other types of promotion like that, because a lot of people are, like a lot of nonprofits are a lot smaller. So you really have to find different ways to take your content and give it to people. Social media is great for that. A really, really good way to do that is to ask questions and to solicit comments from your viewers. Let them feel involved with the organization. Even if they haven't donated before, they haven't volunteered for your organization, engaging them with this content, giving them a behind-the-scenes piece of the stuff that you're doing. It's a great way to make them feel involved, and that could eventually lead to them volunteering for you, donating to you, things like that. That brings us to the next point, which is about engagement. A big thing for social media for nonprofits is to get people talking about it. Because that's what every nonprofit wants. You want people always talking about it. And that's a great way to use social media. Hashtags are great for that. Start a hashtag about anything you can think of, any campaign you're doing. We at WQED had some campaigns around some cooking shows that we had. So we started a hashtag QED Cooks, or Cooks 100, which is a big anniversary special for us. And that was really great at generating, that kind of morphing the conversation, and we used it to our advantage, and then it gave people a very easy way to talk about us and see what other people were talking about with us. And it really led to a great drive in sales of the cookbook that we were selling for this cooking marathon. And that's just one example of how to get people to talk about it. Remember, as a nonprofit, people are on your side. They want to talk about you. They want you to do well. And social media hashtags, kind of blending that conversation all together, is a really, really great way to do that. Now, when you're getting people talking about you, part of that is being a good social media citizen. And what I mean by that is I think there are two different types of social media users for brands and nonprofits. Social media leaders and social media citizens. And everybody kind of starts out as a citizen because you're smaller. To become a leader, you have to do a lot of posting, stuff like this. A good social media citizen involves interacting with your viewers, your followers, and also other brands and profiles too, other nonprofits that can help drive traffic to you. So a good example of that is every day on Facebook we make it a point to go to a couple other nonprofits around town and just something as simple as commenting on a picture that they posted, retweeting their tweets, putting a little post up talking about them and what they're doing, because as nonprofits, everybody really has to be working together because of limited resources. So when you become a good social media citizen, then that good citizenship is passed back to you, and that gets people talking back and forth. And then once you become a good social media citizen, you can kind of move up and become a good social media leader. And that's what we're trying to do. Kind of moving on in strategy, I think a really important thing to remember is to avoid cross-posting. And that means posting the exact same thing to multiple social networks. That's kind of a killer because then that takes away the uniqueness of the different platforms. As everybody knows from just basic social media, from anything, Facebook and Twitter and then other emerging platforms are completely different. Even though you have to relay the same message to them, find a different way to do it. On Facebook, maybe post a picture or post a video related to your content. Even if it's just a 30-second video you shoot with your phone, that can actually go a lot longer than you think into getting people talking about you and getting people interested in what you're doing or activities. Twitter is great because it's just a short blast, and everybody knows that the lifespan of a tweet's not very long. So if you can really pack a lot of punch into one tweet, that can really catapult what you're doing. And Facebook is a different monster because their posts, while they don't really last long, they last a little bit longer. A network like Instagram too, like a quick picture, and you can kind of blast people on Instagram because they're used to, they want to see visuals all the time. So if you can make the experience unique for different social networks, that's a really, really important thing to do. I think this point is really, really important. Let the experts do the talking. In your nonprofit, you always have someone that really knows what they're talking about in certain aspects of it. And like WQD is a weird example because we're a little bit bigger and we have like a TV station and a radio station, but even though the concept's a little bit bigger, it all boils down to the same root. And that is the people that are following you on social networks want to hear the biggest and best thoughts. I always say that, yeah, I could post things that our radio station's doing, but who cares what I have to say about it? They want to hear what the on-air talent has to say about it. They want to hear what the people that really devote a lot of time and energy into it have to say about it. When you can let the experts talk, which isn't possible 100% of the time, and some of you people that have probably ran into this where the experts don't necessarily want to do the posting. They have to push them into it, but keep pushing harder and harder because the more that they talk, they'll find it natural, and your viewers will really sit back and go, wow, this is great. These people really know what they're talking about. That makes me want to interact with them even more. So I really can't stress enough that if you have the experts and you can let them talk, that's very important. So those are some of the basic highlights of strategy that I could come up with that kind of veered a little bit away from basic 101 social media stuff and was like a little bit nonprofit focused. Does anybody have any questions, comments about strategy before we move on to resources?
We actually have a question. It says, what are some strategies to get beyond our supporters to the next level of people who haven't heard of us and what we do?
That's a good question. If anybody didn't hear, the question was how do we get beyond our current followers and supporters and reach other people that might not know about us or what we do. From just a purely social media aspect, like I mentioned earlier, being a good social media citizen really helps because then you get other nonprofits and other companies around the region posting about you, talking about you. And I know resources are always limited, but what we found has worked really, really well are Facebook targeted advertisements, which are super cheap to do. I ran a campaign, Facebook had sent me some free Facebook credits for ads, and I ran a campaign that was $50 in credits. It lasted just a couple weeks. You have no idea how big that reach was. It was really, really surprising how big it was. We went from gaining about 10 likes on Facebook a day. In this time this campaign ran, it was somewhere around like 50 a day. And you know, for a small company, that's pretty substantial for really $3 a day or something like that. So if you have the resources to do like a targeted ad campaign with Facebook, that's big too. And then another thing on Twitter, join in on other conversations. If you see a hashtag trending that's kind of relevant to you, join in that discussion. And then kind of focus the content on something that you would be doing. Use your content to further the discussion. Anything else? All right, let's move on and talk about resources a little bit. As everybody who's ever worked with a nonprofit knows, resources can be very, very limited. And it's sometimes tricky. When talking about social media, one thing that's really important is to evaluate new social networks before you dive into them and make sure you have the resources to support them. You know, Facebook and Twitter are the big ones. Facebook and Twitter aren't going anywhere, at least in the relative short term. But there are always new networks emerging, things like Instagram and Pinterest, Tumblr's microblogging. It's a little bit different than social network, but it still has that social aspect baked in. It's really important to have resources to support what you're doing, because if you start doing it and then realize, oh, we can't support this, and you just let it die, that's worse than never doing it at all. I come up with kind of like a plan every time we evaluate doing something. We kind of look at it and we really question, like, do we have the people to do this? Is there going to be any costs involved in doing this? If there's time and cost involved, do we have enough to back it up? I can't stress enough how important it is. Once you go in, you don't really just want to like dip your toe in something and then see if it works. You really have to go all in, because if you just dip your toe in, the people that follow you are going to see that, and they're going to see that you're not being 100% backed by this, and they're going to be turned off by that. So focus on your core social media sites, networks, campaigns, and really focus on those. If you have the resources to dive into other stuff, that's awesome, and I really suggest that you do it, but just make sure that you can, because if you can't, that looks bad. And this kind of ties into that too. Manage resources carefully. A big trend that I've seen lately has been coming up with a dedicated person whose sole job is social media. And depending on the size of your company, that may or may not be the best idea. As a nonprofit and working for nonprofits, you guys probably know that you're always doing multiple things. You're never doing just one job. And that is kind of a trend that, while it would be great to have just one person doing one thing, it would be great to have just a dedicated social media person. Make sure that if you're doing that, that's where that time and money and a person is best spent. Make sure that you can spend it better somewhere else. Now, that's not saying that social media is not important. It definitely is, and everybody knows that. But make sure it's managed right, and make sure you're not sinking resources into it that aren't necessary. And really, that's it for resources. It's pretty simple. Just manage them and make sure that you have the resources in your hands to really further discussion when you jump into new networks.
When you talk about it being one person's full-time job or one person's job, do you mean to say that maybe it should be a couple of people's jobs, that a couple of people should be tweeting? Because we've tried to practice having one voice and being more authentic on Twitter versus letting 3 or 4 people have access to it, and then someone's posting, then it's uncoordinated. So I don't know if you have a thought about that.
Well, we have actually done both, and so when we did the one, we found out that we really liked the one voice. It was consistent all the time. But we had the problem where the experts were doing all the talking.
Right.
And that's always what's so
You're asking people for something to get you to post, you're asking different departments for material.
Yeah, exactly. And I can attest to this just in the recent past. We kind of had a segmented social media plan where we had our main page, but then we also had these sub pages too, based on other things that we were doing. And that's kind of how we, like, each of those pages just had one voice. But we found out that that really wasn't working that well, so we consolidated them all back under our main page, and then we went to different contributors. And we went from just having one voice to having several. And I'll say it was sloppy at the start. There were some days where there'd be no posts, there'd be some days where there'd be 12 posts and the language on them would be kind of sloppy. But once you kind of work out through those bumps in the road, and it only took us, we were lucky, it only took us about like a week to really work through all these bumps, where the posting became more consistent, people kind of caught on to the language that we were using on social media and how we were talking to everybody, and it worked. And I was a little skeptical when we first did it, but I kind of like having a few different people post about it. And that kind of also takes the strain off of one person from having to do it, and it kind of divvies up the responsibility. And yeah, it might mean another meeting or two, you know, once a week or once every other week or something, but I think it's worthwhile. And it goes back to my last point, it lets the experts do all the talking, which is always great. Whenever you can have that, that's always really key. Anything else about resources or resources and strategy tied together?
Do you use like Hootsuite or Buffer, or do you have a preference?
That's a good question. What we tend to use is real-time posting. We don't do much scheduled posting, and you know, again, that can lead to times where, you know, there'll be like a weekend where there won't be any posts just because everybody's busy. But what our strategy is, and it's something that I really agree with, we don't want it to look like we're a machine posting things. You know, we don't want a post to go up and then somebody asks a question about it, and then 3 days later have somebody go on and answer it. I think that's worse than not having the post at all. So we tend to make a post and then make sure that there's somebody there manning it, like that, preferably in real time. If not real time, like sometime in the next hour or two after it goes up, to have someone there managing the post, managing responses that come in. And we've also had some problems with a couple of things that we've done, people posting, not necessarily spam, but kind of like attacking not us, but the programming that we were doing. And so it's always important that you're there to monitor that. If we would have just scheduled that post, that would have just sat there and not been a good thing. So it's always nice to have someone there in real time too to manage things like that. But as far as like apps go, if you have to schedule, I really Hootsuite and TweetDeck are two of the better ones. For any everyday use, just on your phone, the Twitter apps will get the job done. Just the overall official Twitter apps, and then the web browser is pretty much the way to go on desktop. Anything else? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you find any value in the cloud store or any of those applications that rate how you're doing on the social media platform, like the cloud score?
Oh,
do you find any value or
we don't do anything with our cloud score. We kind of tend to let the numbers of followers and likes talk to us, and also the number of the responses we get. And we just kind of do that organically. Okay. You know, if we put up a tweet and no one retweets it or no one responds to it, then we go, well, that didn't work. We should probably come up with a different way to do that. And same on Facebook. If we put up a picture and there's no comments or anything, we should go, well, maybe we need a better picture. Maybe we need to write better for that picture. Maybe that's the problem. So we just kind of tend to do it post by post, week by week. I'm not huge on like clout. Some people are. I don't find a ton of value in it personally, but it's a thing. Okay, so let's move on to donations, and this is going to be the third and last part. I have a couple things to say about this. And I really wanted to make this the first point, don't over-ask. One thing that nonprofits are kind of notorious for are over-asking, and that was kind of in old media. And the bad part about that is, we do need money. We need the resources to keep doing what we're doing. We have to ask eventually. But you can come up with creative ways to ask instead of just saying like, and we've had this before, just give us some money. We need your money now. And that's really like an old media mentality about it. Come up with creative ways to do it. Come up with a campaign about why you need the resources and what you can do for them. There was a stat that was posted a little while ago that said every 1 in 10 posts should be an ask. And that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I would put that number, well, actually, I wouldn't even give it a number. I was going to say 1 in 100, but that's not even right. Because you might be doing different things in those 100 posts than you were doing in those other 10 posts. Make it feel right whenever you feel like the atmosphere is kind of conducive, whenever you're on like a good vibe and like a good roll on your posting and your campaigns, work it into that. And if you have a specific campaign that you're doing, and I can't really talk in specifics because everybody's different, but if you have a social media campaign you're running, tie it into that. Come up with a hashtag, a creative hashtag like, give because we need a bottle of water or something. That's a terrible example, but make it tangible. Make it so that they realize that they're not just giving money, they're giving money to do some good. And make sure they know why they'd be giving. The more informed that your followers and the people that you are posting and soliciting to are, the more likely they are to be responsive to asks. And the less you do it, the more responsive they'll be too. So people don't like being sold to. And this is a motto that I have: if you do the right thing, the donors will come. And I kind of used our cooking marathon example earlier that we did at WQED. And that's kind of what we did. We never once posted and said, donate to us now because of this. We just kind of posted around the topic, and we had that luxury because it was a TV show. Not everybody has the luxury of having a TV show, so you'll have to bake an ask into there somehow. They're bake cooking. So you'll have to get an ask in there somehow, but just do the right thing. Post well, post numbers and figures, and be very upfront about it. The more upfront about it you are, the more likely it is your campaigns will succeed, and you'll be able to actually put a dollar figure on your posting. I know that we haven't had much success soliciting money off social media directly, but we have a strange feeling that if you would go back and ask people that have been donating to us, they've probably been following our campaigns and kind of have liked what they've seen from us and said, well, we like what they're doing. We were probably going to donate to them anyway, but now we're definitely going to donate to them. And that's part of it. Now the other part is reaching people that don't know about you and people that you kind of need to get new donations from. And that ties in, it all ties together. That ties into being a good social media citizen and putting the right resources into it and having the right people do the talking. And once you do that, you'll be able to start reaching other people. And any way you can get out in the community and be pushing your Twitter handle, your Facebook page, things like that. And that's another thing too, any printouts or any physical items you have, throw your Twitter handle in there, throw your Facebook URL on there. It can't hurt, and it might make people aware that you have these resources that you're giving to them that they weren't aware of before. It's really surprising, and I mentioned the Facebook ad campaign. We didn't really know that there were that many people that weren't aware of our Facebook and Twitter things. And once we made them aware of it, they really wanted to grasp on. And something that I actually forgot to mention in the strategy, but if you have any just junk laying around you think people might want, do a contest and give it away on Twitter or Facebook. There are always some rules with nonprofits and contests, but if you make it random and you just do it right, you'll be fine. And people love free stuff, even if it's just like a towel with your logo on it. People eat that up, they love it. So do the right thing, donors will come, people will come. So, that's my presentation. That is what I had, my kind of key around 15 points that I wanted to bring up to everybody today. I wanted to save this last part of the time because I want to hear what you guys have done. I want us all to talk about things that have worked, things that haven't worked, and how we can maybe improve them. So does anybody want to ask any questions about this, bring up any topics, and ask any questions about things that they've done? Oh, come on, somebody has to. Yeah.
So we recently, I run a few Facebook pages for the nonprofit I work for.
Yeah.
And we recently had a situation where there was a picture posted in the memory of a student who had passed away, and details were not provided, and then the conversation started rolling around the picture. So we ended up like just locking down the page, so the conversation wouldn't get kind of out of hand. There were some details. So like, how do you deal? And I think this also touches to how you say, like, if someone posts something, you know, through a queue, and no one's there to respond. How do you respond to like negative things happening on your, like, we're helping the community page, or conversations kind of rolling out of control?
That's a good question, and that's always like, damage control is always a tough thing to do, especially because people that follow the nonprofits can tend to be a little more oversensitive because they've given money, or they know people have given money to the cause. Then they kind of tend to throw their arms up a little faster, like, what are these guys doing? We ran into the same thing with some stuff that we were doing. Some people kind of started blowing up our page with with conversation that wasn't aimed in the right direction. The route we took, and it worked in getting the bad conversation stopped and getting the right conversation started again. Facebook has keyword blocks where you can set, like, I don't know in the case of you with, like, it's a certain thing that's getting posted every time. With us it was, and every time that word was mentioned, and it was really almost always spammy, we'd like put it through the administrator had to approve the comment before it got posted. And that's, whenever you think you're posting something controversial, that's always a good way to go. Just set up some blocks, make it so that things have to get approved before they go up. Now some people will throw their hands up and say, well, wait a second, they're censoring us. And that's not really what you're doing if they're spamming you. And you kind of have to be conscious of what you're letting in and what you're not letting in. If it's just a real comment, then, you know, there's kind of no stopping. And when it gets to that point, the conversation starts to evolve. Really locking it down was probably the best way to go. And then, you know, like I said, it's always good to be transparent. Make people aware of why you did it, and like say, you know, like the conversation didn't go. This is what we meant. This is where we wanted the conversation to go. And if you're transparent about it, people will understand. There'll be people out there, no matter what, that will throw their arms up and say, you know, what the hell was that? But, you know, if you're transparent about it and you do it the right way, the backlash won't be too bad.
We have another question here. Has anyone had any experience with social media consultants, whether to review and help get staff up to speed? Is it worth the resources?
That's a good question. So just to repeat, the question was, does anybody have any experience with social media consultants, consulting the staff to get them up to speed, and is it worth the resources? It's kind of, that's kind of a case-by-case basis. I have experience with kind of like an overall consultant who was kind of touching on everything. Social media just happened to be one of the things, and like I said, it's really case by case. If you have someone on staff that is knowledgeable about it, use that person. Use the person on staff to help you look for it. You know, just kind of pick at their brain. You know, go online and go on Twitter and kind of see what people are posting. There's some great websites out there, Mashable, The Verge, sites like that really post great social media tips. Just read up on that, stay current, follow the trends. You know, just every day, just click a trending topic and read the trends and read the tweets that are about that. You know, on Facebook, kind of follow other pages that are similar to you and see what they're doing. And if they're kind of doing something that's in line with you, well then keep going with it. If they're kind of doing something a little different, try something different. And you could always reach out to those pages and kind of ask them some thoughts. You know, nonprofits tend to be pretty friendly about stuff like that. You know, like they're willing to lend a helping hand, especially if it means that you could lend them a helping hand later on. So while social media consultants are a great thing, and if you have the resources available to get one, and you know, keep your staff up to date with the latest trends, you know, go for it. But there are definitely alternate ways to take care of that, just by kind of doing due diligence and checking up on posts, making sure you're following the trends, and just keeping current on things.
I was going to speak to that a little bit. I actually am working right now as a consultant with a nonprofit, and I think, like you said, it depends on the organization and what their goals are, and really who the staff is, and how willing they are to immerse themselves in social media.
Yeah.
So before they hired me on, they were doing okay. They knew to start a Facebook page, and they knew to open a Twitter account, but the things they were posting were not real helpful.
Yeah.
They were not engaging, and they were, it was just kind of not going anywhere. So I was able to get them up to speed a little bit as to the direction they wanted to move in, and they did decide to hire me out to manage their pages for them, which is fine.
Yeah.
But even still, I think even if you decide to hire somebody for a couple of hours to give a seminar in the conference room, just kind of to show people the ropes, I think that's worth it.
That's a great point. I say do your due diligence and follow blogs and look at other posts and look at people that are similar to you. But there are some staffers and there's some organizations that are just filled with staffers that really don't even know where to start with that. So that's a really, really good point. Just hiring for like an afternoon session, or just like a little seminar or like an interactive seminar, getting people together. I guess when I tend to think of consultants, I kind of tend to think of like a big, broad consulting session over a couple weeks or months. But an afternoon seminar is a really good point. There are great people like you out there that are more than happy to do something like that. So yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah.
So I'm working with an organization that's not on Facebook and Twitter all that much. They're not doing it very well. And their questions relate to how, if we're going to invest all this time in Twitter and Facebook, is it going to bring the money in? Mm-hmm. So I know you said 1 in 100 of that.
Yeah.
But there's this perception that we can do this donation campaign or this fundraising campaign, and for all these new Twitter followers we get, they're going to just open their pocketbooks right away. So even if I tell them we're not going to ask in every single tweet, there's still this assumption that at the end of the year, what did we get for the time and the money invested in this?
Yeah, and I run into that all the time from our membership. The question always is, if we're doing this, where's the money?
As opposed to with the brochure or the website, other marketing tools that we use.
Yeah, and it's definitely not as tangible, like the dollar figures that come out of it. And there are some people who just are set, like, if this isn't bringing in solid dollars, why are we doing it? But I guess the counter argument to that, and like why would we be doing it, would be that it is another marketing tool. Your mailing campaign, it brings in money sometimes, but for all the letters and things that you send out, it's not going to bring in money every letter. Same with Facebook and Twitter and social media. The only problem is it's newer, and there hasn't been a way to find a tangible means of getting that down yet.
I've had my executive director say he's gone into a foundation meeting and they brought up Facebook like, hey, we've been keeping up with you guys on Facebook, good work. So maybe not necessarily dollars, but opportunities and just more awareness.
Foundations are a good example because foundations love to go on digital resources now and like see what people are doing digitally, see what you're marketing, see what you're putting out there. And this is a good example of what you can say to that. Facebook and Twitter and other social networks really give your organization a face. It gives your company a voice. And that sometimes would have been a little hard to relay before. But now, every day, a couple times a day, you can say, like, here's what we're doing. This is what our goals are for today. Here are the campaigns that we're doing. So people that follow you will like that. Foundations around town will like that. And it will really put a nice face on what you were doing in the campaigns that you're working on, in a way that couldn't be done before. And it's a unique way. It's a unique opportunity to do something like that. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you liked it and you used the word engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. you work at QED, you're going to post about a coaching show you may be interested in. How do you make something say, hey, there's a coaching show at 6 o'clock? Instead of doing that, how do you make those things like, you know, because say where I work, we do like education programs.
Yeah.
How do I make, hey, we're working with this school to do these education programs. You know, how do you make stuff engaging versus just information? That's something I struggle with all the time.
A big way to do that is to ask questions to people on networks. You know, like we're doing this education program. What have you been involved in? It's just as simple as a question like that. Or video is great for that too. Just like take a video with your phone of whoever you're working with in this education program, shoot the video of them talking about it for like 30 seconds, and then have them pose a question, you know, like something like that. You'd be surprised how much audiences like that, and I kind of was too when I first got started. So I kind of said, "Oh, picture of what we're doing. No one's going to care about that."
Yeah, that's the response.
Yeah, you know, they really like that stuff that they don't normally get to see. That's great engagement. Asking questions for them. That's great engagement. And like I said, recently we started like just even posting videos to Facebook, just real simple, 45-second clips. Here's what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We want to know what you think about it. And you know, some stuff, there's some topics that people just aren't interested in, and it's as simple as that. But there are a even bigger number of topics that a lot of people are interested in, a lot of people are really eager to talk about. And they've had this thought on their mind, and they want to get it out, and now they have a platform too. And it's just by you asking them the question of like, why? Or what do you think of this? Or what would you have done?
That's a follow-up. So, okay, so you get, all right, say I rephrase things and kind of work on it. That's something I'm going to do. How often do you get a response? Like, you know, do you find that, you know, like say you post on Twitter 6 times a day, or whatever the fact is. I don't know, we usually do. Do you see a lot of response? I mean, or not? I mean, really?
You know, it's topic by topic, and because you know some of your viewers, and some of your followers, some of the people that interact with you aren't going to be interested in some things, and some things they really are going to be interested in. So it's hard to put an actual number on it, but you know, kind of just keep track of it. Like when you ask this type of question, you see that you get this many retweets and this many responses. When you ask this question, well, you don't get anything. So just kind of base it on that and just kind of go post by post. And you know, and another thing you can do is you can even pose the question, just simply put, what do you guys want to hear about from us? You know, what types of things would you like to see from us? And you know, you'll probably get a decent response there. People saying like, oh, you know, we'd like to see a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And then Facebook has like a question feature that's been around for a little while where you can like give them like a multiple choice question. Yeah, and you know, people like that. Just as simple as, like I said, just asking that.
Thank you.
I was going to add to that too. A couple of things I've had success with is, because I also do education as well, things like quotes, so quotes about the importance of education, that sort of thing. For some reason, Einstein quotes get retweeted like crazy. Everybody loves that.
You know, people also love things that relate to what you're doing, like of this day in history, somebody did this, and oh look, today we're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I posted something about, this was random, I didn't see this coming, but it happened to be the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. So of course I'm looking through all the headlines and came across an article about the band leader on the Titanic, and there was a photo of it. So I posted the photo and I posted a quote from the guy. That thing took off like crazy, just like wildfire. So yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to take off. But quotes, statistics are the other thing too, especially if it's something supporting what everybody following your page might believe in. So,
yeah, exactly. That'll drive a lot of sharing,
exactly,
which is great for viral traffic. And letting people who don't know about you find you. There's always the uniqueness factor. The more unique you can be with your posting, and the more you can take that uniqueness and tie it into what you're working on, and like what your goals are. That really drives things home because they can't get that information anywhere else. They're coming to you for that piece of information. So if you can be unique and tie that into what you're doing, that's big. we still have like 10 minutes.
How do you connect with other social media departments? So if our organizations have a partnership on the ground, but I need to connect with the department, I usually have a difficult time trying to connect with that department.
Yeah.
Like, what are the best strategies? Because sometimes you, especially if the organization is a larger following, like you guys probably get 1,000 hats a day or 1,000 posts or likes on your page. So if it's like a small organization to a large organization, what's the best way to connect with that department? I mean, other than just like calling and bugging.
Yeah, be persistent. And sometimes, sometimes you be persistent and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
But we've had that where people have tried to like interact with us, and in all honesty, if it doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing, we kind of just blow it off, just because resources are limited. But if we see that we're doing something and somebody's made a post or responded to us, and then said, like, hey, you're doing this, we're doing this, check it out, that catches our eye. And so just you have to relate to them. And I know that always doesn't work. You still get blown off sometimes. But then you just keep sending messages, send a direct message on Twitter, keep posting to Facebook. Because trust me, it catches people's eyes. We see people that post this all the time, we know who they are. And then when we're doing something, we've had people before post something to us, and then we just blow them off and say, well, we're not doing anything like that right now. But then 2 months later, we're doing that. And we're doing something related to that. Then we say, oh, you know what? This person posted about that a little while ago. Let's shoot them a line and see if they're still working on that. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But there is a definite struggle for a smaller, page or organization to get in touch with a larger one. Just because sometimes the larger one, their goals are different. But if you're persistent and you tie it into what they're working on, that definitely helps.
So not just the blind retweet this, hey.
Yeah, retweet this doesn't work. Trust me. People look at that and just say, no, we're not going to do that. But yeah, definitely, the more unique you can be, the better. And if you can provide them with some information too that they might not have had, we've had that happen too, where people will like send us a tidbit of information, and we go, oh man, we didn't know that. Then we make a call and like to somebody that we're like to try to confirm, like, is this post right? They're like, yeah, that's right. And we go, oh, okay. So then that was something that we didn't know. And then we'll give them a shout out on the page or something like that. Now, if we're talking about something outside of just the realms of communicating on Facebook and Twitter and just sharing posts, we're not talking about like social partnerships at that point, then that really drives home the uniqueness even more. Like if you can take some content that you have that would really work well with them, and then start making some noise for like some sort of cross-posting partnership in social media or something, that really works too. And emerging sites kind of, I'm going to mention Pinterest, even though I don't think personally Pinterest is going to be around for super long, like Facebook and Twitter will be. It's still a good platform. I like Pinterest. That's a good platform for kind of cross-collaboration on different things. And like I said, it just depends on the content that you have. The more unique your content, the more it ties into what they're doing, the more likely you'll be able to like partner with them with something.
Okay, you talked about getting your experts to talk.
Yeah.
How do you get experts who are technologically adverse to participate in this newfangled social media stuff?
It can be hard, and I've had to do it before. One of our biggest experts is a guy who's super smart. He knows everything there is to know about what he does, but the cell phone he has is like some pay-as-you-go, like Virgin Mobile phone, and you just go, oh man. But it's all about pushing. Like every time I see him, I'll be like, oh hey, how are you? You should make a post on the Facebook page today. Just encourage them to post everything, show them how easy it is, and a good example would be to take something that they're really passionate about and what they're the expert in, and make a post on it yourself as best you can, and then show them, make sure it's unique and it's going to get a lot of hits, and then show them, like, look at this, we posted this, and to them that would just be like some nothing thought in their head that they think about every day. But to the people that they posted it to, it's really like a unique piece of information. So it's just kind of like pushing and then show it by example. If you can give them that example of like, here's our post, look how cool, look at all these people that responded to it, it has like a really killer response, that could push them to do it a little bit more. A lot of people will be hesitant to it, not because they're technologically averse, but because, well, partly because they are, and partly because they go, oh yeah, one more thing for me to do in the day. And you kind of have to explain to them that you have this in your head already, just put it as in a tangible medium. And like I said, if you give them some examples and really show them some engagement on that topic, then that can encourage them to actually post. Some people, you just can't get. There's some people that, as much as you push them, as much as you show them examples, you'll never get them. But other people, will. And it's just a matter of persistence. Anybody in the back have any thoughts? Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, being a surrogate for somebody for your Facebook.
Yeah.
There's been a couple people I know that didn't want to deal with Facebook, but then realized that it was important to have Facebook, and they either hired or partnered with somebody else to be them on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, and it's amazing how many people friended them. You know, because I knew that they weren't really there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the ghostwriter on Facebook, but I knew that this fellow had a ghostwriter on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can work. Like you said, you're surprised how many people still like them and how many people follow them. And you know, ghostwriters can work, and when you have limited time and resources, that is a way to go. That's an option. Sometimes that's the only option. I guess my suggestion for ghostwriters writing for nonprofit is to make sure that the people, if you're feeding the ghostwriter the information, make sure you're feeding them really, really good information. Because the best ghostwriter that you have is still going to dilute it down a little bit because they're not 100% in sync with the information that you are. So make sure that you feed them really, really good information. And for the ghostwriter writing the posts, it's really important to, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them. The person would, most of the time, probably be more than happy to clarify something or make sure that that post that goes up is really, really good. And for the ghostwriter too, make sure that you show them concrete examples of interactions that you've had to really further the idea that this is a really valuable thing for me to use. This is something that they should continue to be using. Anyone else? Still a little bit of time. Any more questions, comments? Yeah, go ahead.
If you really care about a nonprofit, but they're kind of, the nonprofit itself is from the old school.
Yeah.
And their funding has been through subscribers, or like a professional organization. They have people have memberships, and they have an annual conference that makes the money. And but now they need more money. But at least they would get more members if they were more engaged.
Yeah.
But they like hire one person and then tell that person they're in charge of a monthly printed magazine, a quarterly printed magazine, and get all the advertising for it, and do all the social media, and do all the HTML emails, and they just have no concept about the value or the, you know, whatever.
Just a one lump digital person.
Yeah, not only digital, but print and selling advertising in your magazine.
Yeah. And that could be an issue, really overburdening one person, and kind of, that just leads to having Facebook and Twitter on the back burner. I guess my recommendation, if you turn out to be that person that is kind of overwhelmed with 8,000 different jobs at once, just do the best you can. You know, try to get one post up a day. You know, make it unique, because if it's your only one, you have to drive home. So yeah, just do the best you can with it, and know that the posting that you make will have a big impact because it'll be less of a number than the other ones, than other organizations might have. So if you can really just drive the point home with one post or one or two posts a day, that's important. Hope nobody gets in that situation because it's a terrible situation to be in. I've seen it happen before. Anyone else? We have about 5 more minutes we can use.
Forming a social media committee for nonprofits so that various volunteers can funnel posts through maybe one person that has the password that they know what they're talking about. They haven't like just hired somebody, they're familiar with the goings on of the topic. You know, that could post and wouldn't have to think up the post themselves, but would have a social media volunteer committee in the organization.
And that's definitely one way to approach it when resources are limited. The only bad part about that would be committees tend to slow things down a little bit, and then that kind of takes away from like the instant nature of social media. But that's okay. If that's what you have and that's what you have to work with, just use it to your best. Make it as timely as possible, or try to make it timeless. Make it so that that post could kind of work anywhere. Now that won't work with everything because you'll be running campaigns, you'll be trying to do this or do that. But you know, that just kind of boils down to make it the best you can make it. If you can't make very many posts, make that 1 or 2 posts really, really good. And if it has to be through like a volunteer committee is a good idea because with nonprofits, there are always volunteers out there that are more than happy to help out with the cause because they really believe in it. And they'd probably be more than happy to take some information funnel through, do some posting, respond to some people if they're capable of knowing that information of how to respond. And it's nice because then it gives the community a voice too. Giving the community a voice is always a big thing, and that's what we try to do. Like that's kind of one of the points of the show that we do on Wednesday nights is that we give people the voice. And people love having a voice, if you didn't know that. And the more of a voice you can give them, then the more emotionally tied they'll be to you, which is always good, especially when they have extra money to give.
And this may be for anyone, about drafting a policy, like who is allowed to respond to tweets or post, or people in the education field have any ideas about, you know, just I guess creating a policy at the HR level to kind of CYA.
Yeah, and that is something that I've worked a little bit with. Some other people in our company have worked with that. But policies are always a good thing to have, just in case, like you mentioned, or a post goes up and then something kind of goes crazy with the post. Then there's kind of a crisis management in hand, and things don't get even more out of control. Because, you know, when we talked about this a little bit earlier, one person posting versus several people posting. And a lot of times it ends up being a handful of people posting content to the pages. And if one post gets out of hand, and then somebody else jumps in and they're not really sure what's going on and they make a post, they can just make it worse, or the person who made the post to begin with can get on and make it worse. So policies in hand and making people know what they're doing, what their role is in social media is always really important. Whether it's verbally or, like you said, on an HR level on paper, it's always a good thing to do. And for anybody that doesn't know, on Facebook now you can set different admin levels for people that administer your pages. So some people can have total rights, total access to everything, which was always the default. But now you can also have people that just can reply to comments. They can't write posts on their own. You have people that can just do analytics on the pages. So Twitter clearly doesn't have anything like that. But on Facebook you can kind of set different